Hello, KISS Navy, and welcome to episode 28 of the KISS Army Nation podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Pasquale Veri.
And I'm Claudio Spera. Welcome to the show, everyone.
So we continue our special tribute to the KISS Cruise with our next guest. He has organized KISS Cruise Pre-parties for the past 5 years, has recently worked on Nashville's Rockin Pod, has also worked on the KISSmas Masquerade, and yeah, he owns a KISS Hearse. You heard it correctly, a KISS Hearse. KISS Navy, please welcome to the show, Joe D'Angelo. How's it going, Joe?
Very well, guys. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Pleasure.
Hey, Joe, before we get into the main topic of the podcast, we want to know about the man behind all these amazing projects. So, Joe, what is your origin story? So how did KISS become such a big part of your life?
Well, you know what? It started young. I was a fan. I liked the band when I was younger, but I didn't really get into the band until I met my wife. I was 18, she was 16, and she was by far the biggest KISS fan I'd ever met. I hadn't been exposed to the insanity that being a diehard KISS fan can be. But she lived it. She had all the pictures and the posters, and the walls were covered, floors were covered, ceiling was covered. And, you know, we got together here. I was 18 years old, and she really we dove into KISS together. And the last 32 years, we've been going strong. 32? I guess it's been 30. Yeah, 32 years. And we've done a ton of awesome things together, thanks to KISS. And yeah, it's funny when you meet the right person. You guys, you usually just kind of click and you move on. Right. And that's exactly what happened. We clicked, we became one, and the rest is history.
So, what are some of the things you guys did together as KISS fans?
Well, some of the cool ones. I remember the early years before we got, before they put the makeup back. Actually, it was probably right around, but before they put the makeup back on, we were working with, I managed a KISS tribute band, which was Dressed to Kill from New York City.
Right.
Those guys did a ton of shows, and it was a Carson Daly show. We did a lot of fun things with that. Then, of course, KISS put the makeup back on. We did all the reunion shows we could do. God, so many. And then we started doing, we were both event planners. I was managing bands, I was promoting bands, and she was like, why don't we do some KISS events? And we had an opportunity, and I might be jumping a little bit, but in 2000, they played the Trenton Arena. And we're very close to Trenton. We lived there probably 10 minutes away. So we did a pre-party for that show. And we did it at a place called the Urban Word, which is adjacent to the arena. And it was the biggest, best pre-party they'd ever seen. They had the best bar night they had since they opened the club. And we realized we were onto something. We were diehard KISS fans, and it was a great way for us to connect with more KISS fans by doing KISS parties. So it just kind of evolved. That's, and there's been a ton more. From Cruz Fest to doing the Rockin Pods to doing pre-parties for the Madison Square Garden show in New York City a couple years back. That was a really fun time. Really fun time. Everybody had a blast. The club really went over and above and took care of everybody. So we had a blast. Those are the types of things, we're creating memories with KISS. And I think a lot of people who are into KISS can totally relate. They get it. There's something about the band that just doesn't let you go. Yeah, you get sucked in, and you're not allowed to leave.
It's true. So true.
It's really incredible that besides having KISS in common, Joe, you and I also have the event planning thing in common. And Claudio, before recording, we were talking about how we met. We actually met online, right? And you came to my one of my KISS Army Nation event parties, the New Year's party, and that's how we officially met. Exactly. And became friends ever since.
Exactly. It's amazing, man. It's so nice.
Imagine if it wasn't for KISS, this wouldn't be happening right now.
Yeah.
It's surreal.
So true.
So Joe, I want to jump forward a little bit because I seriously want to hear more about this KISS Hearse. Tell us everything. I mean, this is definitely one of the most unique items out there.
Again, I got to say the KISS Hearse came from Patrice as well. She's a huge Halloween fan. Anybody that knows her knows between Halloween and New Year's, that's her. She's in her splendor. That's the time period of her just loving life. And starts with Halloween. So she wanted a hearse, and I wanted to do a hot rod. And I was like, well, why don't we do a KISS Hearse hot rod? And it just evolved into it's a really fun thing. I got to tell you, the looks I get from people when I'm driving this thing down the street. We actually went to an LA KISS football game on my birthday several years back. Again, at the Trenton Arena, the Philadelphia Soul played and played the LA KISS. So of course we made up LA KISS jerseys with our names and our birth years on the back, like 90, 92 or 71 or whatever. And we all got in the hearse and we drove to the game, and the hearse is fun. It's a unique piece of history that I'm glad I own the only one. That's kind of fun.
Tell us about fan reactions when they see the hearse.
Oh, it's great. My father was in a car club when I was a little boy, like 5 years old. So I've been around old classic cars my whole life. Okay. So my father used to run these car shows. So in turn, I've been going to car shows pretty much my whole life. I've owned a 1962 Bonneville convertible. This car was beautiful. I won one little trophy for it. I've won like 10 for the hearse because people just love the car. It's funny. They love to take their picture with it. They love. There's a whole nostalgia thing there that they're like. For us, we're rabid KISS fans. We didn't experience them as a kid and then move on and leave them behind. We still experience them. A lot of people that were into KISS, they experienced them as a kid, they moved on, and then when they see them, they're like, oh, God, I remember KISS when I was in high school, blah, blah, blah. I get a lot of that at the various car shows, too. People want to take their pictures. They put their kid behind the wheel, and the kid holds the steering wheel, and it's fun. It's fun. It's a lot of good time.
That's interesting because it opens up, people sharing stories, and telling, how they got into KISS, and it's all because of the hearse, right? So that's amazing. That's a trigger to many, many new relationships, friendships and amazing memories.
I think how many times I've seen Facebook posts. There's a guy that I'm friends with in Arizona whose friend was driving down my street, saw the hearse in my driveway, took a picture of it, posted it on Facebook, and said, I got to know the story behind this. Well, my friend who lives in Arizona, I had no idea this post was out there. He tags me. He says, hey, Joe, isn't this you? So here we are. A guy from Arizona has connected me to a local guy. And yeah, it was, here it was based on the KISS Hearse. And it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of nice classic cars that I could have had that, you drive around and, oh, look at that nice Corvette or look at that nice Camaro. But there's something about making a hot rod that's of a passion of yours that gives it a dual-fold experience.
Right, exactly.
And we've been lucky. Vinnie Vincent signed it, Bruce signed it. I think Eric Singer signed it. There's like a glass behind the driver's head, and we've had him sign the glass behind it. So,
wow.
As we meet the members of the band, I'll get them to sign it, hopefully.
That's awesome. Hey, Joe, obviously all our listeners know that you organized the Cruz Fest, but this isn't the first time that you organize or help organize major events. So, I mean, your events are highly successful, and I dare to say that are part of history. So can you please run us through some of these projects? Like, let's start, let's say, with your work with the KISSmas Masquerade.
That was actually one that I probably had the least involvement in. I did a little bit of work with Neil. That was basically Neil's event. And he, I helped with a couple of things. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would have been at the event and working it. But traveling within states at that point was a little different than it is now.
Right.
But I helped with the logo a little bit, and I helped make the collectible guitar picks that they made for the event. That event was probably one I had the least amount of work in. I started doing the pre-parties for the Cruise Fest, for the KISS Cruise. I really got involved on KISS Cruise 5. Patrice and I helped a guy that was doing a party at a hotel. Following year, it was moved to New Orleans, and at that point, no one was doing anything because the guys that were doing the parties at that point weren't set to do it in New Orleans. Patrice and I, that's our home away from home. We love that city.
Okay.
So we had a connection to a club, and bam, then that was it. We connected. We did a big party. Had Paul Stanley's son come out, and he performed, and that was the first real event. I shouldn't say the first. It was one of the events that actually had live entertainment. A lot of the events before the cruise sometimes just do a DJ and giveaways and stuff. This one was more about the live music.
And what about your involvement with the Rockin Pod?
That's something that's evolving into more and more. I've been working with Chris Czynszak for a couple of years. And let me tell you, if you don't know Chris, you should know Chris.
Okay.
He's a great guy. He runs the Decibel Geek podcast, and this Rockin Pod is his baby. He is all about the podcasts. And he got me involved for a couple of reasons. And he's said this too, so I'm sure he'll tell you this, my experience working with the stars or the celebrities, however you want to call it, you kind of learn the way to deal with them. Sometimes a little kid gloves, sometimes you got to give a little bit, you got to kiss a little ass, pardon my expression. But Chris is more of a business guy. He doesn't want to deal with that. He'd rather have me handle that. So he brought me on board, and he hadn't done a conference at a hotel yet. And
Okay.
the great part about the conference at the hotel is everything is in one spot. So we, took my experience in doing that, brought it to the Rockin Pod, and this last month, last August, it was the biggest event that we've had for the Rockin Pod, and we expect next year to be just as big or bigger. It's a really great event. If you own a podcast or run a podcast, it's something you should look into. Tons of great celebrities. Carmine and Vinnie Appice were there. They were a ton of fun.
Wow. So we need to be there, Pas. Remember, huh?
I was thinking about it for next year. I wouldn't mind doing it.
Yeah. Big time.
I think once the Kiss Army Nation podcast goes for a good year, so yeah, I would love to do that.
So, Joe, before we got on the line, we were talking with Pask, and we were, both of us, extremely curious about your work with Vinnie Vincent. Can you tell us more about that?
It was professionally challenging, but I promoters that deal with people of Vinnie's caliber will have stories about a lot of different people. And I have stories that I could tell you too, both about Vinnie and the promoter that I was working with at that time, which really made it difficult. But Vinnie is one thing that I don't think Vinnie gets credit for enough, because I know he gets a lot of bad raps from people. He is incredibly gracious to the fans. He is, I can't say a bad word about him when it comes to the fans. He takes the time, he looks at you, he gives you the eye contact, he signs. He has arguably one of the best signatures in rock and roll. So his autograph looks great on almost anything he signs it on. But I have stressed that point. Now, as a promoter working with Vinnie, there can certainly be some difficulties, and there were. Fortunately, we were able to get over those hurdles. The problems weren't really so much Vinnie as they were the promoter I was working with at the time. There were some problems that developed between he and Vinnie that had to be smoothed out. So all in all, I can safely say the event was a huge success. That was 2018. We did that in Miami. And there's some things that I was just talking about the other day with Vinnie that I may be involved in the near future. So, I have to keep that under wraps. But he's a great talent and I have to commend him for that. I hope that he comes out and does what he's supposed to do going forward with some of the projects he's got working on. But I have to say again, Vinny was good. There were some problems, but we got over them. And I think the biggest thing is Vinny's great to the fans, and that's something that the fans need to pay attention to. If you go to meet him, you're going to have a good time. He'll take care of you.
Okay, nice.
Talking with people who organize events and work with celebrities, they always say the same thing. When you work with a celebrity, especially your idols, they don't see you as a fan. They see you as a business partner. And that's the way you're treated, like a business partner. This is nothing but business, nothing personal. And you're right, when it comes to the fans, it's all about the fans, and they give their fans their all. And you're right. I think people, put down Vinny a lot, but a lot of other celebrities do the exact same thing, don't they?
And it's kind of funny. You're absolutely right, because I've worked with different people at different levels throughout my career, working with musicians and different events that I've done, and it is a business to them. Like I just use Carmine and Vinnie Appice for an example, because I just worked with them back in August. At the Rockin Pod. The Rockin Pod was a business event for them, but I got to tell you, they were some of the nicest, most funny guys. We had a blast with them for 3 days, and I really can't say a bad word about them. They were particular. They wanted things a certain way, but again, it's business.
Right.
Yeah.
Here I am as a fan. I'm looking at it, and like Billy Sheehan was at this event, and Greg Bissonette, the guys from David Lee Roth's band. I'm like a kid in a candy store. But you have to kind of pull back and be like, okay, I get it. I know it's business, but here's what we have to do. Meanwhile, inside, I'm like giddy and excited, because these are guys that I idolized growing up. So, but yeah, I have to say that's usually the case. It's business. You got to look at it like that.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Well, I want to go back to the main topic here, which is about the KISS Cruise. Your biggest event is the Cruise Fest, but the Cruise Fest wasn't the first cruise pre-party. There were so many before it, and they seem to get bigger and bigger with each passing year. And just when we thought it couldn't get any bigger, bang, here's Cruise Fest. So can you give us a rundown of how Cruise Fest started?
I have to give my wife the credit for the name. She came up with it, and we copyrighted it and trademarked it and did what we had to do. But before it got to that point, we had gone to all the different parties that had happened. We've been on all the cruises. So the first one, I believe, Sixth Man had a little party at a bar, and we went there. And then there was another party at the Hard Rock, and we stopped at that one. And we've done, from the Hard Rock to, Jay Jadowski had a couple of parties. I think he did like 2, 3, and 4, maybe 5 KISS cruises. And, of course, Andy Moyen had the Living in Sins, which he was doing at the Holiday Inn, very cheekily named. And, we would go to those, and they were more laid back. They were more, DJ, very casual, great place to meet the people that you'd love from the previous KISS cruise that you haven't seen in a year. But when I had the chance to actually get involved, and Patrice and I had worked on events for 2 decades leading up to this, we had always known how to organize and promote and do a lot of that. And when I started working with Andy on the Living in Sins, just to help out, and grow it, it evolved. My talent and my forte was always handling the talent, booking the bands and promoting. And that's what I did. And so I did that when I started working with Andy once we went to New Orleans, and it just was a natural involvement. After the one in New Orleans, we came to Miami, had the Vinnie party, which was at the Hangar, which was an awesome success. We sold that. We packed that room too much, actually. But that's a story for another day. But at that party, I met I had actually hired Neil. Neil's in a KISS tribute band called KISS America. So I hired Neil to play that party, and that's how I met him. And after the party, he came up to me and he was like, do a good job. Maybe we can work together next year. And we talked right after the cruise, and we decided at that point, Andy Moyen said he was retired. So I knew I needed a new partner. It just seemed like a very natural fit for Neil and I to start working together. And the rest is history. I mean, Cruise Fest in 2019 was phenomenal. And we have a great team in place, Bill Allward and Jay. myself and Neil really, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I guess I am. I don't think I've seen a KISS event that was that much fun, especially leading up to the cruises. And it was because we all worked together to make it what it was. Whether or not there'll be another KISS cruise, I guess will determine whether or not there'll be another Cruz Fest. But I guess that's a bridge we have to cross when we get to it.
When we get there, I'm so curious. I never had the chance to be in one of those fests. But what did the Cruz Fest offer the fans? Why were so special?
I think the big part of it is with the KISS cruise is you really build friendships with people on these boats on the ship I've met friends that I've met that literally have now moved in across the street from me. I'm not kidding you. I met a couple on KISS Cruise 4, Tom and Star Peters, and we became such great friends. They bought the house across the street, and we're now neighbors.
Wow.
So I think what the Cruz Fest offers a lot of people is not everybody can do that. So we have to rely on technology like Facebook and things like that to stay in touch with people. And the great part of Cruz Fest is it gets you a chance to go see and hug all those people that you missed for the last year. That's the first thing. But I think what was really kind of cool, the expo was well done. We had a lot of people selling some really incredible stuff, and they sold a lot because there was stuff that was tailored to the people that were coming. So we gave the fans what they wanted. And we gave the vendors the fans, so it worked out well. Having Ace and Sebastian play together on stage created an awesome moment that was a thing, a part of history. Right before the KISS cruise, there's Ace Frehley playing with Sebastian Bach. That was a really great moment.
Right.
Having him play with the guys from Return of the Comet was amazing. I think we always try to, and I say we, I mean the team members. It was not just me, but I think we really try to create an experience for the fans that they're not going to get anywhere else. We're all fans, so we always thought about it. It's an event by the fans for the fans.
For the fans.
So for us, it was always, if I'm going to this event, is it an event that I'm going to want to go to? And if I stand back and looked at like the Cruise Fest lineup from 2019, I'd have been there just for that if there wasn't a cruise. So that to me is probably the explanation of what a Cruise Fest offers a fan.
That's great. Great answer.
It really set the bar high for KISS Cruise Pre-parties, and that's really now the expectation before going on the ship to go on this amazing spectacle of a pre-party. But these pre-parties are a huge undertaking, and like you said, you don't do it alone. Can you tell us who else is involved and what exactly their roles are?
It started, like I said, Cruise Fest now is a team of myself, Neil Davis, Brian Bell, Jay Jadowski, and Bill Allward. Jay's been, they're all cruisers. All the guys have been on multiple cruises. I think Jay's been on them all as well. We all kind of work together. Like this year, there's so much that goes into these events. People think that, you just book the bands and, all this money coming through the door is ours. We were really shooting for the break-even point. These events, you're targeting the break-even. You're not looking to make money. Mm-hmm. So we all work together. Neil was working with Brian this year on locking in some of the talent from last year, which was the Ace, and we had actually started talking to Bruce a while back. I handled most of the website, the promotion, all the ticketing information, lots of the correspondence to people. I think that and by default, not by any other reason, but I've kind of become the face of Cruise Fest. And I'm the guy that owns the name, so I guess that's not a bad thing. But so I kind of handle a lot of interaction with people. Bill and Jay were more behind the scenes working with volunteers, helping with the expo. But all in all, we would talk every week. The five of us get on a conference call and we would, okay, what's going on this week? What are we doing? Well, we'd bounce ideas off each other. And, there were a lot of positive things that came out of those calls. And like, when you're working with somebody like this, it's just like a marriage. You're also going to have times when you have disagreements.
Yeah, right.
But, we're all adults and we all figured out the situation, and we just moved ahead. And I think because of that, which is why we were able to put on such a great event.
You know, Joe, given the current situation, you know, unfortunately, you had to cancel this year's event. And I'm sure that that couldn't have been an easy decision, right? So what's the fans' reaction to it?
The fans were great. I got to say, out of 100 fans, 99 were totally understandable. We've had one or two cuckoos, but you know, unfortunately, social media brings them out too. But I think all in all, the fans were totally understandable. The reason we decided to do it, and it basically boils down to, Sixth Man has a very strict set of protocols for the cruisers to get on the boat. And the bottom line is you have to test negative. 5 of us partners talked about this. We didn't like the idea of leaving it, you know, having an event in Florida 2-3 days before the boat, which is enough time for you to hopefully not. But if you did catch something, then you get to the boat and you can't have your vacation. I know for me as a fan, I'd never forgive myself if I held an event that made somebody miss the KISS cruise.
Good point.
So I think we just decided, and I have to really thank Brian and Neil and Bill on this one, because those guys were handling a lot of the finances behind the scenes, and they ate the costs for this year's event. There were costs that we did not pass on to the fans. We basically incurred them because we didn't feel that we could charge anybody anything for not giving them anything.
Right.
So that was unfortunately one of the problems with this event. We did lose some money, but I give those guys props for standing up and being the good guys that they are, and treating the fans right.
So now, what does the future of Cruz Fest look like?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I've talked to some travel companies that do travel promotion that are interested in maybe doing Cruise Fest for other music cruises. So there's a possibility of something like that happening, you know, and that I won't rule anything out. As far as another Cruise Fest for a KISS cruise, well, I guess that depends if we have another KISS cruise. That's the first step. I mean, that would have to happen first of all. And then, of course, the 5 of us would have to sit and have a conversation and figure out if we wanted to do it again. So I guess for now it's pretty much in limbo, although I have heard some, we'll call it the rumor mill, that there is going to be a final voyage after this KISS cruise. So I guess we're just going to have to keep our fingers crossed and wait and see.
Claudio?
I heard that, man. Yeah, there you go. Got it.
So, Joe, it's really a testament to you and your team that you're able to get these major celebrities onto Cruise Fest. How do you even get Ace Frehley, Bruce Kulick on something like this?
I've been fortunate that you know, over my years doing bands, that I've met a lot of artists. I've met a lot of talent agents and promoters. So, you know, for guys like Sebastian Bach, you know, I just called his manager and I basically said, look, we want to book Sebastian. What's the number? And, you know, you go a little back and forth, and then you book it. For Ace, we did that too. We reached out to Ace's management. Bruce has a guy, and we reached out to Bruce's guy. Now, Bruce and Neil have been working on some of Neil's auctions. He's doing his KISS auctions online.
Yeah.
So he's got a deeper connection there too. So, but that's it. I mean, you know, and it's not that difficult. You just need to know the industry a little bit and be able to pay them what they want to get paid. And that's where you get the business end of things, you know, making sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Also, it has to do with the amazing reputation that you and your team have to organize such events, or else I don't think these celebrities would even consider it.
Right, exactly.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. I have had some of the guys that have been at the event, like John Regan. God love I love the man, I really do, and he said some wonderful things about me and the guys and our event. And To me as a promoter, I don't think there's any better feeling than standing back and seeing 1,000+ people enjoying the band that is on stage that we arranged to put there. That's the thing that I love the most. Some would say, a lot of people ask, oh, it must be cool hanging out with them. Well, yes and no. I mean, it's always cool. I take that back. It is cool. But it's not like you're hanging out with them and you're going out to dinner and you're splitting a bottle of wine and you're talking about the kids going to school. It's a different kind of thing. You get that photograph, you can talk for a couple of minutes, but all in all, the real feeling, I look back at some of the pictures from the Cruz Fest and you just see a sea of people. I have pictures from the New Orleans event where people were lined up on both sides of the club, hundreds deep to get in. Those are the kinds of things that I'll never forget. That's right. That's what makes me get up in the morning and want to do this.
That's lovely, man. I was thinking actually, going a little bit off a script here, but I was thinking as you were speaking. So now that you really are a pro, in what you do, and you can tell by the way you speak business and all of that. But when you are involved in this kind of events, involving KISS and, having some of the ex-members part of it, can you still get that passion, through you, or it's pure business? Is it kind of going to work, every day, or you say, hey, this is KISS, this is in my veins, this is in my blood, so I'm still having a blast, this is passionate, and still running a successful business?
I am still a kid at heart. I still get, butterflies when Gene Simmons walks in a room. I still, my watching my wife smile when Bruce Kulick poses for a picture with her, or, it's those types of things never get old. Okay. And I'm gonna revert back to Carmine and Vinnie at the Rockin Pod, because I got to tell you, we came home from Rockin Pod talking about them for a week. They were so much fun. It's an experience I'll never forget. I've been starting to jot down a lot of these experiences over the years, and I've thought about, I don't know if it would ever become any kind of book, but maybe like short stories or little funny quips or something. I don't know who would read it, but I turned 50 in June. And I'm a firm believer now that I look at myself, and we all have great lives. We're all very blessed to do the things that we do. But some things are great. We just don't tell anybody because we may not have the means to tell anybody. And we're podcasters, you guys specifically. I've been told I should do my own podcast, but I think I'd rather join someone else's than actually start my own. But I digress. But, it's one of those things where it's total motivation. It's I still get excited. I still get giddy. I still want to work with these guys and experience all the little things that they bring to an event. Like I said, Billy Sheehan and Greg Bissonette from David Lee Roth's band. They both did a jam of a couple of David Lee Roth tunes off the Eat 'Em and Smile album at the Rockin Pod. I was like, the hair on my arm stood up. You know what I mean? Wow. Like the back of my neck. I was so excited to see these guys do that, and like to know that I was the last guy and the first guy in 22 years to get to get Vinnie Vincent to perform. That's a pretty cool thing, that's a piece of history that you can't take away. And those little things kind of stick with a man, I guess.
That's awesome. And then you brought up the point of your thinking of putting all of this into a book, man. I'm sure that Pascal and I, man, will be so up for it, man. And so you have already two guys, looking forward to it already.
Yeah, I've got some really good stories with Bob Kulick. I love Bob. And I have the quick little thing, which is giving no story away, but I was on a conversation with him, and Bob would call me sometimes and just vent. He'd be like, Joe, I need someone to talk to, and he would just go off. And I'd sit and listen to him. And at the end, one time he says to me, he says, you know what, Joe? He says, you're a good mensch. And I didn't know what mensch was. I'm not Jewish, so I had no clue. I had to look it up, but it was a compliment, and it was a compliment of the most sincere kind. And those are the types of things that I think would make great stories. I have more and different little things that over the years, people we've met, times they've said something funny. We did an event with Bruce Kulick, and Keith LaRue ran the event. It was at the ballpark, Prince William County. It's a ballpark, a AA baseball stadium in Virginia. And I'm going back. It was during the Union days, so it's probably right after the makeup was put on. And Bruce is there with John Corabi because they're doing this together. Bruce is going to do the national anthem. But we're hanging out between, sessions and, waiting. It was like a rain delay, actually. We were just waiting together. And, so we had some great conversations, some funny little one-liners that developed back and forth in that 3-hour rain delay. And here I am sitting with Bruce and John Corabi and Keith and my wife for 3 hours talking about all things, whatever. Those little things I think people would find funny. I don't know, especially if you're into music.
Of course. Yeah.
So who knows?
Joe, we can't have an episode on the KISS Cruise without mentioning Sixman. Have you worked with Sixman at all with these projects?
To tell you the truth, I've tried to work with them on more than one occasion over several cruises. They are resistant to do so, probably because of any potential liability. But I don't know that for sure. They've never fully explained it. They've just basically told me, well, thanks, but, no thanks or whatever. And I think part of it was they didn't want to get involved because there's so many people. Like at the time, there were multiple pre-parties. So they didn't want to side with one pre-party over another. So,
okay, got it.
Yeah. So that was kind of a long-winded answer. I apologize for that.
Not at all. And what's your assessment for the work Sixman does for the KISS Cruise?
I really can't say anything bad about them. They have to deal, and this, in this little book idea that I've been writing, I came up with the thing. KISS fans are some of the most rabid music fans, band fans I've ever met. That's true. But having to work with them on these pre-parties, I realized how crazy some of them can be. They all, I shouldn't say all, many of them feel that they are the biggest KISS fan and that nobody is a bigger fan than them. I have one more tattoo than you. I have one more action figure than you. I have this. I have that. It's just the way it is. I can't imagine how Sixman may, they're never, ever have I seen them lose their professionalism. And I think that's commendable to them. And but all in all, I think they've done a pretty good job with what they've had to work with. Especially with the whole COVID thing. Getting this cruise to come to fruition is it's going to be a massive undertaking for them. So I probably would say that they've done a pretty good job. 7 out of 10.
Well, Joe, before we wrap up, so I just have one final question for you. So why? So with all the challenges, that we're living on, trying to organize events and gatherings and all of that, why choose to undertake such monumental projects? So what's your motivation? Well,
what's funny is my wife has asked me that question more than once. I don't know. I think that, it's funny. I've always been a promoter. I've always done events. And I managed bands for so long. I think a lot of it is me living vicariously through the bands and the events that I put on. Okay. I don't play in a band anymore. I don't manage a band anymore. So when I do these types of events, I guess it's a chance for me to connect on some sort of primal level with the people I'm doing the events for. So I guess that's probably the best answer I can come up with.
It is, indeed. It is.
So, Joe, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. We met way before you were working on the Cruz Fest. We met personally. And I remember thinking, here's a real down-to-earth person. What you see is what you get. And we were talking about KISS fans. And oftentimes, KISS fans, there's a certain celebrity that comes with being a KISS fan. People know you because you're a fan. And I think for some people, it gets to their heads. You're just a fan, dude. Don't worry about it, But with everything that you've accomplished, it never went to your head. You're still that grounded person I met so many years ago. And it's been a privilege to be your friend, a privilege to have you on the show. And I think speaking as a KISS fan, everything that you and your team does for the fans is deeply, deeply appreciated. And I think I could speak on behalf of the KISS fans when we say thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, I'm humbled, man. You're very welcome. it's a passion. Some people passion is teaching, and they're
Yeah.
great with kids. Others, it's doing this kind of stuff. And but thank you. I appreciate that.
I have to second that. Pask, same thing. He couldn't have said better than that. So, it was a true pleasure to have you, Joe, in the show. There's a lot of stuff that I was not aware of, and I appreciate and I thank you, to go into the details. And I'm so looking forward to have the chance to meet you somewhere, in the road, in some of your events. So hopefully, when this thing is going to open up, for sure we're gonna start doing something together. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Joe. It's been great. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it, Claudio. I really am.
And who knows, maybe sometime in the near future, we could have an episode with Joe again, talking about some of your stories that you want to include in this potential book of yours. That would be amazing.
Might be a great idea.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can talk about. We'll talk later. I love that idea.
Love it.
So again, on behalf of Claudio and myself, thank you so much for being on the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks, guys.
And to the KISS Army, thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Joe.
The KISS Army Nation podcast has partnered up with Click T-Shop to offer our listeners a high-quality T-shirt with graphic design by Xander Graphics. Check out Click T-Shop at clickteeshop.com.